Welcome.
Yeah.
To the number one, the Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Dadio McDuke. I'm joined as always by John, Peter, Paul, and Mary Sheeran, and hold on, sorry.
Am I three people today? Is that what that was?
Brioni Jansky, everybody. HR is in the room as well.
Bridget
Jankars.
Yes, that's what I said.
John, you
okay,
are
look.
like three people. You're
Yeah,
like
guys.
as smart as Dadio.
You know, we
Sai,
can, we did an
and I.
introduction. We're done with the introduction. So look, guys, we have a lot to talk about, believe it or not, in the non-news part of the year. And we have a very special guest for you. It is a man who speaks the truth, and he's never been wrong about a quarterback in his life, which is a pretty prestigious thing to have in your pocket. This man, okay, look, he had the highest GPA for his college, and this was, I'm talking about Independent Community College in Kansas. He had the highest graduation rate. He took them to the Jayhawk Championship Conference for the first time in 30 years, first postseason since 1995, and they had their first bowl victory in their history. I'm talking about Mr. Coach Jason Brown, and we're going to get him on because he very boldly ranked Joe Burrow as the number one quarterback in the AFC. And obviously, that shows he's a very intelligent man. But a lot of people gave him a lot of hate for the list. And we were all tagged in the tweet that went out. And so that's why we know about it. And we said, hey, why don't we bring him on to defend himself? So we're going to get Coach Jason Brown on here very shortly. But first, we have to talk about Brinks.tv. And we know that Courtney is very excited about all the very innovative and hot topic kind of podcasts that they're putting out. And they have one now. I'm reading here. It is hosted by Kellyanne Conway. And it is called Double a Speak. And it's a lot of practical tips for getting out of like a parking violation, or if someone says, hey, did I gain weight? You know, you give answers like you say, well, technically we all gain a little bit of weight through the course of the day from eating, or our hair and nails growing very microscopically. And, you know, you give answers, but they're not real answers. And so it's a very useful tool, and she teaches you how to basically, fine-tune that in yourself. But also, we want you to subscribe and like and listen, share. If you like the podcast, then you are probably a strange person. But that means you know other strange people. So I want you to share with them and tell them, hey, I saw this podcast. It's great. You go like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff too. Okay. By the way, how are you guys doing? John and HR.
Yeah, did you I feel like you pioneered that podcast. I feel like that's just taking content from you.
Yeah, okay, so let's bring in our guest. I'm talking about Mr. Coach Jason Brown. Now, I would just real quick, Coach Jason Brown, before you say anything, I just one quick disclaimer. In order for us to monetize the show, now you obviously you're a very articulate man, but we cannot have, how do I say this, colorful language on the show, because then I can't monetize this show, if that makes sense. So we have to kind of Mr. Rogers it up a little bit in terms of the language. Having said that, yeah.
I don't like this rule, but we have to follow it. It's my least favorite rule.
So welcome to the show, Mr. Coach.
How you doing?
We are good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I know you're very excited to be on the show, and we've been communicating about it, and we want to get right to it. Really, your quarterback list. You have Joe Burrow ranked number one. Now, we want to know why you have him ranked number one. But before we talk about that, I want to explore why people have a problem with that. And I want you to tell me, someone who has no knowledge of football, has never played football, barely even watches football, if I'm correct or not. And here is my take. Joe Burrow's game is not as aesthetically pleasing as a Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. He doesn't throw the ball as hard. He doesn't throw it as high. He doesn't run as fast. He's not, he doesn't explode on the screen when you watch him. He's surgical, and he helps his receivers by throwing them open. and he gives them advantage over defenders by getting the ball to them in the right spots. It doesn't look that great, but he gets the job done. And that's why I think a lot of people sort of underestimate him, because it doesn't look as fancy as those guys. Similar to how Marino maybe seemed like a better quarterback than Montana, and so we've had this in history before. So what is your take on why people have a problem with you having Joe Burrow number one?
I don't know why they have a problem. The people that have a problem are people that are Twitter gurus. They have not a clue about the real position itself or what it really takes, the intangibles or what have you. So the people that you see, the naysayers, are just people on Twitter, man. It's really laughable. And it's pretty comical to see their responses when, all you have to do is ask them, send me your resume and we can continue the conversation. Unless you do that, then I'm not going to sit here and talk to you. So it's crazy. I've sent 3 to the NFL. I got 25 in the NFL currently, and I just had 7 drafted this past draft last month. And I don't really debate it with these people on Twitter too much. I do it just out of fun when I hear the real idiocracies of some of them and just flat out ignorance. I kind of do it as a joke, but besides that, I don't really get into it with them because they're basically morons and they really know nothing. They eat donuts all day and they watch 600-Pound Life and they sit at home and help nobody. So that's who we deal with on Twitter. That's the 99% of the majority. So, it's really don't even waste your time with dealing with those guys. I don't. And the bottom line is, Burrow has the it factor, capital IT, and that's what he does. He has that, like Brady's of the world and the Aaron Rodgers and the Troy Aikmans and the greats that have come before him. And, I put him, he's really, really comparable to Carson. He's really, really, he reminds me of Carson quite a bit. And
which Carson is that? I'm sorry.
What was that?
Which Carson? Not Johnny Carson. Which Carson did you mean?
The quarterback, the great one you guys had before.
Carson Palmer?
Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, he reminds me of him. He's big, strong guy. He's got a little bit of an elongated motion, but he still gets it out quick. He can spin it. He's accurate. He's got arm strength. His skill set is clearly there. And he gets the guys the ball that need to have the ball in the right time, at the right time, in the right spots. He moves the chains, and he has that feel in the pocket where he's not escaping like a lot of these youngsters do too early. He climbs the pocket and he makes throws and gets his playmakers the ball instead of trying to make plays with his feet and while guys are running wide open. So, and he still can make plays with his feet, which he does, and show some athleticism that you really don't realize that he has, but he does have. And to be honest, it's just my experience, and it's the watching the position, having played the position at the highest level, seeing these guys, throwing with these guys. He clearly has it, and he's right up there at the top 3 quarterback in the league, in my opinion, right now. And I picked Cincinnati to play the Rams in the Super Bowl on my show over a year before the actual Super Bowl happened. So you can actually look that up. And for the simple fact that Burrow is not just really a rookie, to be honest, after he got hurt, but not only that, he's an older rookie who's been around. He's a coach's son. He just has all the intangibles that you want from that position at this level. And that's what he's shown and proven. And I think he's only going to continue to get better. Does he have a slump down year? Yeah, all NFL quarterbacks do. Is it this year? Who knows? It'll be 1 year because his team will get in certain areas will flounder a little bit. They'll drop off in certain areas. Hopefully they improve the O-line there. The receivers are great. They got a great running game. They have all the tools. I think they lost their tight end, one of them, but they will They'll be fine. I mean, I don't know if they'll be back in the Super Bowl anytime soon, right away. But I think they're going to be. But Joe Burrow's going to be that guy.
So I just real quick, you mentioned on the podcast that you've never been wrong about the QB, and I know you've had very prolific offenses in college, very impressive considering where you were and the ability to recruit and basically a spot talent. So what do you mean when you say you've never been wrong on a QB before?
Projection. I project the guys that get drafted. If they're going to be a buster, they're going to be good. So, yeah, I've never been wrong in a projection of a quarterback that's been drafted, or even a guy that wasn't drafted that ended up making it. I've never missed on one of these guys just because I coached the position, I played the position. I think I'm a elite talent evaluator. I don't know. That's just what it is. I mean, I just haven't missed on any of these guys. I called Carson Wentz. I called Baker Mayfield. I've called Lamar Jackson. I called Burrow. I mean, I've called it all. So
you're not a big Baker fan, and you're not a big David Carr fan. Is something I learned from the podcast, where you have him as the second to worst, I believe. No, I'm sorry, the 12th best quarterback in the AFC.
Derek Carr.
Derek Carr. Yeah, David Carr is even worse. But you're very low on Derek Carr, and you have Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, and Ryan Tannehill ahead of him. Is it, because he took his team to the playoffs, and it was a down-to-the-wire game, and he's had a lot of fourth-quarter comebacks. Of course, he has an average arm. What is it about him? Do you think that he's been a product of a great situation, or do you think that he's in for a decline, or do you think it's just he doesn't have the it factor to get you deep into the playoffs?
Yeah, he does. He actually has a very strong arm. He just doesn't have the it factor, and half of those fourth quarter comebacks he's orchestrated himself by allowing them to be down big because he threw a pick six or two. So you got to really look at the stats and the data. There's a reason they're down in the fourth quarter, and there's a reason that you're allowed to make comebacks like that. A lot of that stat is actually a very, very overrated stat, because if you look at how they got behind a lot of these quarterbacks, I mean, Trent Dilfer back in the day was a guy that did it, and he couldn't throw, he couldn't hit a water if he fell out of a boat. And he was a guy that came back in the fourth quarter because he made these horrible decisions early on in the game, and their defense is so good. Luckily, it kept them in it. The Raiders, he's just a guy. We call him a jag, just another guy. That's what he is. I mean, there's nothing special. People get mad, but what has he done? And I'll wait. I'll wait for whoever wants to tell me what he's done that has been so special.
He got paid.
He's done nothing. He's gotten money. He's got paid, but has he won a bunch of playoff games I don't know about? Has he won a Super Bowl? Has he won any meaningful game in his history of his career that I don't know about?
Well, but you have Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence.
Mac Jones got destroyed in his only playoff game. You have him sixth.
Yep, because of his season.
I think it's, like you said, it's projection. You think that Zach Wilson, obviously a high ceiling, Trevor Lawrence, very high ceiling, and, Ryan Tannehill has taken them to the AFC Championship game. I think that with the younger quarterbacks, it's projection. Is that correct? You think that they have the potential to get it done, but you don't think that Carr
does. Clearly the quarterback. It's not clearly the quarterback. And if we want to talk about Zach Wilson, we can compare him all you want. Understand, he's at the New York Jets. He's in the worst franchise in the NFL. So please understand that. I got Daniel Jones at number 5 on my NFC. People are bashing me about that. Watch Daniel Jones and how good he is this year, because he has a concrete foundation is going to be set with him now with Dable. And watch how Daniel Jones excels this year. You heard it on your show first. So I'm just telling you, these guys like Zach Wilson, I've been around him myself in person. One of my best friends was his head coach at BYU. Zach has all the tools that a lot of these big-time upper echelon QBs in the league have. He just, unfortunately, at a horrible organization, just like Trevor Lawrence is, just like a lot of these guys are. It is what it is. I got Sam Darnold, too, because I've coached against him. I've coached him. I know what he has as well, along with these other guys. He was in a horrible situation. Now he's in another horrible situation. 6 OCs, 4 head coaches. I mean, you have to understand this thing this is a quarterback position that you're either the GOAT or the hero, and you need some concrete foundation. Look at Tom Brady's success, obviously playing in the worst conference in NFL history for 20 years, AFC East. But he had concrete foundation. Nothing changed. If the OC did change, it went from a quarterback coach to the OC. Weiss left, and they brought back the first OC. So, like, he's familiar. He had the foundation. These other guys do not. And you see them moving around, and it's tough on young kids. They're young guys. They're younger guys.
Yeah. And they could end up being busts. Obviously, like, sometimes moving around different OCs, they just end up being busts. They never reach their potential. But John has a question.
I'm gonna butt in, Daddy. You've been talking way too long. You've mentioned, Coach, about the it factor a couple times. We don't. For us who don't have like a comprehensive resume of coaching the quarterback position, we hear that term a lot, but we don't really know how to explain it or how to quantify it. In your best way, like, how do you describe the it factor?
The it factor is an executive presence. It's like the guy that gets picked first on the pickup basketball court. It's the guy that takes and steals the prom queen from you. That's the guy that has the it factor. He is the guy, period. He gets it. He's good in everything. He's good in golf. He's good in soccer. He can shoot a basketball. Is he a professional in those things? No, but he can actually play it and look like he knows what he's doing. These guys are the guys that have the it factor. They're the ones that know how to get it done. They make plays when you don't expect them. They break the pocket and make a play that you never expect. And at the least amount of at the most important, crucial, critical times of games, and then they do them in big games. Big time players make big plays in big games. That's who has it factor. So there's not on our team. I'm just gonna be honest. There's not a lot of them out there. I'm just telling you, and a lot of them are overpaid.
When you look at our team here, our podcast team, who has the it factor in your opinion?
I don't know. It ain't the puppet.
It's not. Okay.
Damn.
Touche.
Well, but I would say this. I am the one who always makes myself available. John wasn't here last week. One of our co-hosts isn't here this week. And 2 weeks ago, I think Bridget, HR, wasn't here.
I had COVID.
Right. So there's all sorts of excuses. And here's the thing is, the famous coaching saying, they say that availability is what it is the best form of ableism. They call it ableism nowadays. I don't know if you know, Coach. They say if you blame someone for getting hurt, that's ableist. I don't know if you've heard that. But, going with that idea, you have Deshaun Watson as the worst starting quarterback in the AFC when we know talent-wise he's probably top 3 or 4. But it's because you say it's him or Baker Mayfield. You don't know who. Either one, it's the worst quarterback situation. And you don't think that they're going to be available or their availability is not going to really elevate their team. Is that right? Is that why you have him there?
Well, the guy hasn't played in 2 years, and I don't believe he's going to play this year, and I'm not going to be shocked if he never plays again. So anyone that puts him above anyone else are idiots, because how can you put a guy we know he's talented, yeah, cool, but if he don't play, you look like an idiot putting him in your top 5. I'm just saying. All these big-time media people that have him up there, it's the same thing as having a rookie who has never taken a snap yet, Pickett, above a guy like Mills in Houston. Mills is a very good and talented kid who actually is in another horrible organization who has a huge ceiling and a skill set. And he's actually played a ton of downs in the NFL. But we got guys in the media that have put Pickett above him. I don't believe Pickett starts over Trubisky. So Trubisky would be up there on my rating if he was one of the Qs to select from, just like Garoppolo would be higher up on the NFC one if he was to choose from. So, people have Trey Lance on some of these things I've seen in the top 10. Really? He played FCS football. He hadn't even played college in over a year when he got drafted, and he's yet to play meaningful downs in the league that's going to pay him big money. But we have him ranked top 10. See, these people anoint these folks all the time on these big publications and platforms and they have no clue what they're talking about. From Mina Kimes to all these different people. They all want to anoint Stephen A. Smith. They anoint all these people when they really have not a clue what they're talking about. And it's really comical.
They're eggheads, Mr. Coach.
It's ignorant. Ignorance is life-threatening, man.
So,
they're really ignorant.
I have a question, Dadio, because you never let me speak, especially when it's actually about football.
Right.
So,
well, me and Coach, really, we can't let loose. She's HR, by the way, Coach, and I feel like we are both very restricted because of the. But that's okay. She wants to talk now. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm speaking. So I'm biased, and I think the AFC is really stacked, and I've gotten a little heat for saying I think the AFC Championship is going to be a more competitive game than the Super Bowl for at least the next 2-3 seasons. But as you were compiling your list and looking at, the AFC QB talent, the NFC talent, like what do you think?
Not to cut you off, but who in the AFC is going to beat the Rams?
We were a minute and 30 seconds away from doing it. We had it. We had it.
I hear you. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so I'm from Michigan, so we've got a long Matthew Stafford, and I think Stafford's fine. I saw you rated him quite highly for the NFC. I don't know that I would have ranked him that high, but he performed last season, and that's fine. But how do you think about the AFC QB talent versus the NFC talent? Because when I look at Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, that is a stacked top 5. How do you see these two conferences being competitive against each other?
To answer your question, though, you have to know what we're discussing. So Aaron Rodgers has a Super Bowl. Tom Brady has 1,000. Stafford has 1 now. Let's compare the NFC quarterbacks to the AFC quarterbacks and who has won more Super Bowls. Who has won more playoff games, meaningful ones? There's not a lot over there on your side of the football. There's not a lot.
When was the last time Rodgers won a playoff game?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just saying they have a Super Bowl ring. So I'm just answering a question as far as how I compare them and rate them. So I'm going to be honest with you, brutally honest. The quarterback position in the NFL current day is as worse as I've seen in NFL. I'm talking about the actual position, how it's meant to be played, and how it's done with what we're in. We are in a results-oriented business now. So nobody cares if you're a freak of nature and you throw with your left hand and you're a righty because you got out of traffic and you did this jump pass and you threw underhanded. Nobody cares if you don't win. So at the end of the day, yes, we are more athletic now. We are more talented now at the position. Lamar Jackson's a freak of nature, but he's not a good quarterback in the NFL. I would love to have coached Lamar Jackson in college. He's a freak of nature, but he has so many flaws in his talent level and his skill set that it is going to restrain him from winning a Super Bowl. And that's what we are ultimately judged on. Tom Brady's the GOAT because he's won more Super Bowls. He's not the GOAT because Tony Romo will outthrow Tom Brady in every facet, every throw, every game, every day of his life. But is he better than Tom Brady? No. So it's not about just skills. It's not just all raw talent. It's having that it factor that Tom Brady has. And there's guys like that in this league. And then there's guys that are freaks of nature that just will never win a game in the playoffs. And we'll just continue every year to rate him as this high rating. But what has he done? That's what I don't understand with these ratings that people come out with. And to answer your Stafford question, I would be willing to say Stafford is a top 5 NFL quarterback of all time if he was with a team like the Rams 6-7 years ago at least. And he'd probably have 3 Super Bowls. That's the issue. He's come over to a real team with structure, infrastructure, culture, and won his first year. And he's been doing the same things, the stats, all the stuff he's done in Detroit, he's done, and he did it this year. But he had some structure and an environment around him that's conducive to winning, unlike he did in Detroit. and I can argue with anyone that he's his top 5 skill set of all time, and he would probably be in the Hall of Fame already, and we'd be talking about how he's a top 5 guy because he'd have probably 3-4 Super Bowl rings, and nobody brings that up. Nobody brings that up.
Well, I saw John had a reaction to when you said this is the worst quarterback kind of
No,
class.
that was just a bug kind of flew in my mouth a little bit. My mouth was agape. I just want to make a clarification. You were right about Lamar Jackson because you knew he was going to win an MVP, or because he's negotiating a contract right now?
Say it again.
Earlier in the show, you said that you were right about Lamar Jackson, like you were right about Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz. Were you right because you expected him to win an MVP in his second year, or because he's negotiating a contract right now?
No, I was right that he would never win meaningful playoff games or a Super Bowl.
Gotcha.
Yeah. MVPs, we know what that is. That's a population. That's a popular vote. That's not really, Aaron Rodgers won that 2 in a row because he's the popular vote, regardless if it's positive or negative, COVID or no COVID. He's the most popular human being playing the position. So that is what this position is. Or if not, Aaron Donald would win the MVP every year. So let's just be honest. Like, there's no one that dominates a game like him on either side of the football. So that's we know the award goes to that position. Now, whoever has a hell of a season, in the regular season, it's cool. But playoffs in the NFL changes. The ball game changes. Everything changes. Defenses get better. They've schemed you up. They've already prepped. Well, a lot of things change in that regard. And you see those guys go from the regular season running around to the playoffs where they can't throw a hitch ball on time because the cloud coverage changed, and now they don't understand it or grasp it, and they hold the ball, sack, run 40 yards around the backfield and gain 1 yard, have to come back to the huddle exhausted and try to do it again. Like, NFL's not meant to run the football at the quarterback position all over the place.
We've seen running quarterbacks get really close in recent years. Steve McNair I would classify him as a running quarterback. And
I won it.
He was very close.
Steve McNair is not anything close to a running quarterback. That's the problem.
Well,
you don't know what you're saying. You don't know what you're talking about. That's the issue. Steve McNair was a pocket passer who escaped with his feet to make throws while he was running escaping the pocket. He was not a runner. Steve McNair ran 4.8. He was not a runner. Steve Young won a Super Bowl when he stopped running around.
Yeah.
When he ran the football, he was horrible. He never even got close to winning the Super Bowl. So
Colin Kaepernick, Colin Kaepernick got really close, and he's not known for his passing. He ran for 180 yards against Green Bay in that playoff game.
Yeah,
I'm saying I agree. Here's my thing. I don't think it's so much about running quarterback or not. I think it's about a quarterback who can make the big conversions when you really need them. And so that's why a guy like Tom Brady who can do that is more valuable than a guy who can maybe put up a ton of yards most of the time, but you can't count on him to get those conversions late in the game. And I think Joe Burrow has that ability. But I do think some running quarterbacks, if you will, have that ability, if they kind of refine their passing technique and they know when to do what and all that. And Lamar Jackson's only, 25 years old? I mean, he's still young. I agree with you. I don't think he has the skill set that you want to win deep in the playoffs, but I don't think it's impossible. I think he could develop and who knows? But Coach, look, we've taken so much of your time and we haven't even talked about your own stuff. Coach Brown was, of course, he had his own Netflix special, Last Chance U, and fantastic show. Obviously, it is about the dropouts of college like myself, people who couldn't pass their grades, and they get one final chance to get higher education. I assume that's what it's about. But he
not
also
all dropouts, but yeah,
great show. But also he has the Slap a Stick podcast. Which here's my question, Coach Brown. How do you have a genre of comedy that is based on, physical comedy when it's just audio, when it's just a podcast? So I saw the title and I was a little confused, but that is also on the Believe Podcast Network, the Slap a Stick podcast.
It's actually changed. I changed the name to Hate Me Now, Love Me Later. That's the title of my book. And so I do a YouTube. I also have a YouTube show with the show. So it's audio and video, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So I do that. And so, yeah, no more slapstick.
No more slapstick. Okay. Well, before you go, just one quick thing. I have a problem motivating my team. You are one of the master motivators. As we said, they're taking too many vacations. What can I tell them to kind of, I want to say, put that fear into them, instill that kind of, where they're just always on edge, where they feel like you're always watching them, or
I can't stop eating donuts, man. Like, I got to do something about this.
Yeah, Coach Brown, what do I do? How do I whip these guys into shape?
His own, man. Hey, I don't motivate people that don't have any self-motivation. So, I can't want it more than you. So if my man wants to eat donuts, hey, blow up, brother. Kudos to you.
See, that's the support I need, Dadio. What the hell?
Yeah, that's what you need. You need support like that.
Well, that didn't help. But we were very happy to have you on the show. I mean, it was fantastic getting your perspective because you've done it. You've lived it. You've raised kids through the process, and you've been right 100% of the time, which I've never heard of from any other coach or analyst before. That is a record. And yeah, so thank you so much, Coach Brown, for coming on the show.
All right, I appreciate you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, so before we go on to the next topic, we actually originally were going to talk about how Joe Burrow is going to be on the Sports Illustrated cover. It's a glamour shot. I don't know how much, he will be wearing. I don't know if this is to sell the magazines. I don't know what the strategy is. But look, I'll tell you this. It's going to be the first time that I'm going to buy the NFL preview in about 25 years. So that says a lot that they put Joe Burrow on the cover of a sports. What are your guys' take on that?
What was the 1997 preview that you were so intrigued about?
The reality is I used to get the Sports Illustrated free to my home because they forgot to cancel the subscription of the previous resident. Yeah. But anyways, John, they talk about the Madden curse, this curse, that curse. I don't feel like Joe Burrow is cursable. I feel like this guy is so cool. Yeah.
Is there a curse with SI? I wasn't aware of that.
I don't think so. Yeah, I was checking with you.
Well, on the subject of the contents of the actual picture, I'm just going to say right now, Joe Burrow's legs are not sexy at all, and I feel like that's a really big red flag for me when it comes to cover models. Right. I just feel like there's just a lot of unused potential there, and I think as his career unfolds and progresses,
is it the scars from the eight?
No, that's not true.
It has nothing to do with the scars. They're just kind of chicken wings, and I feel like he's got to work on that.
No,
you don't like the chicken wings. You like chili. John likes chili. He's not the chicken wing guy.
So I want to be respectful of Joe Burrow as a human person and not objectify him for his looks.
Yeah.
However, I watched his presser today, and at the end, he stood up to walk away, and his thighs were looking impressive.
Yeah, John.
So, John,
that's fake news.
What about the calves? What about the calves?
Well, they didn't show the calves. But
I've seen the calves, man. There's a lot left to be desired.
We all see that. Well, I guess we don't. We see the
John,
socks.
can you please control your desire on this show? That's not what the show is about.
That's the angle that you took with this cover, though.
Yeah, I guess it is. Look, here's the thing. I wanted you guys to talk about how it's so great to have someone. Look, we had.
What I hope they do? I'm going to say this. I'm going to go on the record. I hope they put him on that weird tiger couch. Have you seen this thing?
Well, we already saw the shots of where they're shooting it. It's on the
I
field.
have not seen that.
Yeah,
but they have this really bizarre tiger couch at the stadium that you can go get your picture on, and it is disgusting. Like, I don't know who wants to sit on a fur couch one after the other, especially in the midst of a global pandemic, but I really want him. It's got a head, and I just feel like that would be an epic cover.
I don't think that's going to happen, but I think the last time we had someone on a Sports Illustrated cover, John, was Chad Johnson. I'm thinking. I know we had Carson Palmer. I hate saying that name. But I know when he was doing his rehab, and that was John, this was how far we came with ACLs. It was a big deal that he was
I remember that. It was a picture of him in the pool, but I do actually remember, I remember a Bengals.
He was just playing in the water, John. That's what
he wasn't playing. He was
the
rehabbing.
Man had no heart. But anyway,
he was literally running with a scar. But I remember there was actually a cover after that, and it was Caleb Miller hitting like Hines Ward, and it was about the Bengals and Steelers.
Oh, right.
rivalry.
Yeah, that doesn't really count.
I think it counts. Why not?
Yeah, I don't know. There was the one when we beat the Chiefs. Oh, that was before. That's right. That was before. That was before they made the playoffs. But okay, look, that's one thing I was talking about. Also, his leadership. He came out and he spoke about Jesse Bates. He said how valuable he is to the team in terms of leadership, and he basically said, "I side with him. I want him. I understand his take," and he kind of took the side of the player. And we know that Joe Burrow is like the actual president of the Bengals. What he says matters, and I really do think that's going to help Jesse Bates in negotiations a little bit. Maybe they throw in another 25 cents. I don't know.
That's generous. Yeah.
The last thing about Burrow that we saw was he came out and he talked about the recent kind of violence and his stance, and he was very confident and he was very humble, but he was very, he was very determined.
Did you say confident?
Yeah, he was very confident. Yeah.
Okay.
I felt like he wasn't being fed the lines from anybody. It was his true opinion, and he has stated it clearly. That is amazing for a guy in his position. I was impressed.
Yeah, it's relative to his position. Like, what he said was the most mild take of all time.
Actually, it wasn't, John. It wasn't. He said, no, John, what he said was, if we can't get rid of them entirely, then we still have to do something, right?
That's literally the borderline, like, baseline.
That's not, no, because the implication is we should get rid of them entirely, but we can't.
I don't.
That is extreme, John. That counts as extreme.
Yes, it does. I don't think that's. I don't know that that's where
very bold take.
I don't know that that's where he was going with it. I love that he didn't skirt it entirely. I mean, it was. Of course. And they threw it in right at the end of the presser. I think he handled it well. He said, "My job is to play football on the field. There's people paid to legislate on this. I hope they do the right thing." But, I was thinking about what Coach Kerr said, a day or so, or the day after the murders in Uvalde. And, that's, that was one of the first figures we saw really taking a stance.
Kerr has
a difference. See, I feel like.
Yeah, because Kerr has experience with that. I believe his parents were involved in such an incident.
His
father was.
Yeah, his father was. But no. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. You clearly have something to say.
I was just gonna say, Kerr. The difference is he made it political. If you notice, it's like, why isn't this side doing something like that? And I actually think that that's counterproductive. I think that the measures that they really need to take, I don't think it'll be solved by favoring one side's, approach over the other. I think it needs to be something more extensive, and I think that's what Burrow was saying. That's what I liked. I don't think he was, I don't think he was just, John.
I agree with you. I don't know if confident. I'm just going to go back. I don't know if confident is the word I would have used.
I was just taken aback why people were surprised that it was asked or that he answered it, because this is not the first time that he spoke up about societal issues. Ever since he's been in the limelight, he's made a habit of it. Police brutality, January 6th. He's not shied away from these things, which is why the question was asked by Ben Baby, who knew this, who has been covering him for his entire career ever since he broke out at LSU. So it didn't really shock me that the question was asked, but of course, when you get an answer that's for whatever reason controversial, even though it's the most common sense thing you can possibly imagine, you're going to rile off some feathers. But of course, Burrow has never shied away or just given a non-answer. He provides substance when he knows what is right and what is common sense.
Yeah, that's what I love about him. Okay, so look, we have to move on. John, I want to talk about the defensive tackle position. And the Bengals still need a 3 technique, and Jeff Hobson was asked about it, and he was saying, hey, maybe they trade for another one. And you see 3T phone to get away from home. That's BJ Hill, who got away from the Giants. John.
Yes, thank you for explaining.
Are there any good trade candidates? Yeah.
No. Not
it's
right now.
John. It's before your time.
I still know what the movie is. I know the quote. We didn't really know about BJ Hill until August came around. He was just a guy who was behind a bunch of other starters. He was 3rd or 4th in that rotation for the Giants. Maybe when the preseason is unfolding and guys still aren't getting playing time, and it's maybe a guy like BJ Hill who was in the last year of his contract, maybe you have that situation. But it's not really something you can project in June. Again, these things might come up in August, right before the season comes, but it might be a little bit too early right now.
Okay, so let's move on to Camp in Your Mood. Fast, because we had the very long segment with Coach Brown. And, And so, John, there's two guys that Jeff Hobson mentioned as the Bengals being high on. One is Javon Hiley, ironically. Another was Kwame Lassiter Jr., who's the son of the great defensive back who had 25 career interceptions, obviously. And Kwame Lassiter today, they were raving about him in 7-on-7s. They said this guy's going to be great in the return game. Obviously, there's the discussion about Odell Beckham because he saw a tweet or a Instagram post of Joe Burrow where he said something like, I'm itching to play, or I can't contain myself or something. And then OBJ said, the one. Like, he is the chosen one. He's the greatest one. He's the one I want to play with, something like that. And so there's like, hey, maybe he becomes the fourth receiver of the Bengals. I think there's no way the Bengals would give him. I don't know if he's looking to take a pay cut like that. So, John, what do they do with the fourth receiver? Is it one of these undrafted free agents? Is it Michael Thomas, or is it the outside veteran?
I think the one was the 1 megabyte that you have on the internet right now with your connection. He's the chosen one because he brought LSU a championship, and Odell Beckham was in the locker room in the Superdome when Burrow was smoking cigars, and he was handing out bands to players, and he was there when the cops showed up. Like, Burrow and OBJ have had that connection since going back to LSU, just because that's the common ground that they share. People are obviously reading into it a lot because he's a free agent and the Bengals could use another receiver. I don't think it's going to happen, but I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it. I think at this point in his career, Beckham isn't necessarily the number one guy anymore, and at this point, like a 2 or a 3 or a 4 on the depth chart, I don't think it really makes that much of a difference to him.
Okay, moving on one more time along the lines. John, La'el Collins. This man, they say he looks exactly as we expected him to look. And that, to me, is like, some of these dating apps, John, and you order somebody over the phone or something, and then they come and they don't look like what you thought they would. Or, sometimes you order like this bookshelf behind me. It was like half the size I thought it would be. It wasn't what I thought it would be. But La'el Collins, they're saying he looks like what we thought he would look like. So they're basically saying, they're content. They're going to leave a positive review for the Dallas Cowboys. What do you understand from that, John? That he looks like what they thought he would look like?
Well, it's been 2 months or 3 months since he signed, so there's not been a ton of exposure to him yet. They signed him for 3 years. They expect him to play all 3 years. So far, so good, basically. Like, it's just been practice. He hasn't gone through rigorous contact drills or has played any games yet. We'll see how he manages that. Unfortunately, he just has a history of missing games and everything that comes with that. But now he's back with his former assistant coach or former offensive line coach. There's a chemistry there. There's a history of working together there. So far, so good. That's all it is. I hope you're not ordering people off dating apps. I don't want you involved.
No, I don't do that. I've just heard about it, John.
Yeah.
I don't know even what those dating apps are.
I don't think they're dating apps at that point.
Yeah, that sounds like the black web.
It's not the black web. I mean, just because they're not in America, they may be in Eastern Europe or something. I mean, you can't call it the. You shouldn't really discriminate. I'm surprised, HR. I am surprised. I am ashamed. Speaking of HR, let's go to Dadio Cares and let us get our weekly reprimanding. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're not being reprimanded this week. We're being
of course
educated. So I'll be quick with this one because it's near and dear to my heart. Well, that's not why I'll be quick, but that's why I picked this one. And I'll be quick because we are running out of time. And I think people are probably sick of listening to us by now. So June is National Migraine and Headache Awareness Month. So I am actually one of the 40 million people in the United States that are impacted by migraine headaches. So like I said, this one's near and dear to my heart. And I actually spent a little bit of time looking up more about migraines and headaches. But I felt like this one was really apropos since Dadio causes most of my headaches now. And
Preach.
John, I feel like you can probably empathize with me on this. There's currently no cure for migraines, but we know there are a lot of things that cause headaches. Courtney, do you have one of my prime examples for, yeah, here we go. Don't do this. this causes headaches. It's not a migraine, but like that's like a number one cause of headaches. We don't like to see it. Don't do that. And we don't want to see Houday doing that a lot this season. So the hope is going to be that's not the case. And if Burrow performs at number one, like Coach Brown thinks he will, I don't think we'll see a whole lot of that. So there's a number of different treatments for migraine sufferers, from pain relievers to preventative meds. My co-hosts actually know I'm on a preventative med that causes brain fog and some memory loss. So sometimes even on this podcast, I'll be like stumbling over a word and like trying to find what's that one word, and I can't because it's my preventative med, but I'm getting less headaches, so, trade-off. There's also holistic medications and natural treatments. So if you are a migraine sufferer, it's always good to talk to your doctor and see what works for you. But I didn't know if folks knew that Joe Mixon was reported to suffer from migraine. So he missed a series of practices in 2020, and folks were wondering if it was because of contract negotiations, but he came out and said, no, I have actually been having a series of migraines and found a physician and a set of treatments that worked for him. Don't know if he's had them since then, but Mixon is a migraine sufferer, one of the 40 million. And so final couple of things. One I thought was really interesting. 90% of people who think they have a sinus headache, John, Dadio, I don't know if you've ever felt like pressure in your face and are like, oh, it's my sinuses. So 90% of people who think they have that actually have a migraine, and the other 10% or so actually have a tension headache. And Botox can actually be a really helpful.
Oh, that's too bad.
Oh,
time.
Is that like the chef?
Yeah, whenever the segment runs out of time, you hear that.
No, I feel like I'm the only one who gets that.
I don't know.
Okay, well,
go ahead.
I need like my Kamala I'm speaking mug to finish it out. So Botox can actually be a helpful treatment for migraines to block like the nerve signals that cause pain. I didn't know if folks knew that. So final statement is that eating well, getting a consistent sleep pattern, and keeping track of your headache triggers can all help with migraines. And like most health conditions we talk about on the show, literally the number one preventative measure for not getting a migraine is not to work here. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's
well,
Dadio
thank you.
Cares
I mean, you
this
talked
week.
about triggers, and I feel
Like that alarm? My God.
Yeah, that's what happens when you kind of don't observe protocol and stick to the time. But I would say this: you talk about triggers and you talk about sympathy for people with headaches, but you always ignore my triggers. I told you that air conditioner and heater and paperwork, like filing taxes and writing checks, all of these things, they give me headaches. It's not because I'm cheap, but I don't like using any of these things and in DNH sports. But yeah, you just say no, you're cheap.
Legal boundaries are not, I don't think, known migraine causes.
Well, we see again. You are telling me about my body. I don't think that is fair. But speaking of not being fair, I want to talk about patreon.com/dhsports because look, we have 12 patrons, which is great, but we have so many of you watching this stream illegally. You are not paying for it. And as we know, streaming anything without paying for it is illegal. So if you want to abide by the law and honor us and help us get our intern back. We've lost our intern, and we see that she's in over her head, trying to keep up with President Joe Biden. And if you want our fact checker back, make sure to go to patreon.com/dhsports. Look, just $1 a month. That's all. If we just have like 5,000 people doing that, we should be able to get our intern back. Maybe even less. But that's really all I have, John. I don't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. Yeah. All right. Well, for HR and John, Peter, Paul, Mary. That was the headache. John, Peter, Paul, Mary, Jared. I'm Dadio McDuke. Don't forget to subscribe on iPhones and go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/channel, whatever, DH Sports, and leave a comment and share with your friends. We're the #1 Bengals podcast. We will see you next time. So long, sweetie pie.